Gee, I'm not sure if you've ever heard of this, but there is a group of people who are not afraid to die. Okay? Can you guess what's going on? Here is a little more information. They don't cry when they see a spider, or get panicked in traffic. Don't worry about getting sick or losing their job. Don't panic when they run late for an appointment or a flight. Don't have to be convinced twice to try new things. And these people are not crazy, sociopathic, or lack empathy. They are normal people, just like you and me. Thithy. In 2007, a group of researchers set out to find why some people never let fear dictate their choices, while most of us do. In their study, they identified that the fear-free people use objective criteria to make decisions instead of being guided by emotions. And one key difference that they found was that they asked themselves 3 important questions before making any decision. And that's what we're going to explore today. Because it's time for us to learn how to stop letting our emotions control us and start thinking rationally to become the architects of our own destiny. Sport. If you like this kind of content, please hit the like button. It helps my channel grow, and also subscribe to receive notifications when I post new videos. Point number 1. What would X say? Let me tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a young woman who had recently graduated from university with a degree in marketing. Throughout her studies, she had been excelling in all her classes and had received several job offers before graduation. She ended up choosing a company which was willing to pay her the highest salary for a position in the sales department. But, unfortunately, after only a few months, she started to feel miserable because she realized that she wasn't really interested in sales. So she started searching for other job opportunities. But all the positions that she found required prior experience in the role. So she ended up accepting a pay cut and started working at an advertising agency as a junior copywriter. Even though the pay was less, she was happy to be doing something that she was actually passionate about. A couple years went by, and the girl kept getting promotions because of her excellent work. And if you're wondering, yes, this girl is me. Okay, so what happened to her after a couple years? Well, suddenly a headhunter contacted me, asking if I was interested in a marketing position at a well-known tech company. The position sounded interesting, and I thought to myself, why not? If I apply, they will either hire me or reject me. So I sent them my resume, and a week later I got invited for an interview. Now keep in mind that at this point I had never interviewed at a big tech company before. I didn't know what to expect, and I felt really intimidated. After a few rounds of interviews, I was rejected, and even though I was disappointed, I didn't dwell on it for too long. Then a few days later, the recruiter contacted me again and told me that they wanted to bring me in for another round of interviews for a different position, which was actually a senior level position. I couldn't believe my luck. And without hesitation, I rescheduled my meetings to accommodate for the interviews. Now, throughout the interview process, I met really nice people, and the culture of the company seemed very welcoming. However, after the last interview, I still didn't hear anything back. And by this time, I was starting to feel impatient. So I decided to send a follow-up email to the recruiter to check the status of my application. 2 weeks passed and I hadn't heard anything back. So I decided to call the recruiter to follow up. This time he told me that they were still interviewing other candidates and that they would be making a decision soon. 1 month later, I received an email from the recruiter saying that they had decided to go with another candidate whose qualifications were a closer match for the position. Although I was disappointed, I accepted the situation and moved on. Okay, so why am I telling you this story? Well, if I had asked myself the question, what would X say? Throughout this entire ordeal, I would have saved myself a lot of time and mental energy. You see, when we let our feelings guide us, we often end up regretting our decisions. That's exactly what happened to me. And if I had asked myself, what would X say? I would have realized that the effort that I was putting into this job search was unworth the reward. So now let's define what X is. X is someone who has your best interests at heart. It could be a close friend or family member who knows you very well, or even your future self. And here's the deal. Before making any decision, no matter how big or small, pause for a moment and ask yourself, what would X say? And then listen to the answer. Trust me, you won't regret it. Point no. 2. What is the worst that can happen? Imagine you're standing at a crosswalk waiting to cross the street. You look left and right to check for cars, and when you see that the coast is clear, you start to walk. But just as you take your first step, a car zooms past you, forcing you to jump back onto the sidewalk. Your heart races and your hands shake. But after a few moments, you calm down and decide to try again. This time you wait a few seconds longer to ensure that there aren't any cars coming, and when you see that the road is clear, you start to walk again. You see, when we face uncertainty, our minds naturally conjure up worst-case scenarios, which causes us to experience fear and anxiety. But sometimes our imagination can run wild and make the possibilities seem endless. And that's where the phrase, "What's the worst that can happen?" comes in handy. By asking ourselves this question, we can put our fears into perspective and realize that in most cases, the outcome isn't as dire as we imagine it to be. Let me give you an example. A few years ago, I was interning at a Fortune 500 company, and I had to prepare a presentation for a meeting with senior executives. I had never presented to such a high-level audience before, and I was terrified that I would make a mistake and humiliate myself. But instead of letting my fear paralyze me, I used it to motivate me to prepare even better. I practiced the presentation numerous times until I could deliver it flawlessly. And guess what? The presentation went perfectly well, and I didn't make a single mistake. In that situation, the worst that could have happened was that I would have messed up the presentation. But in reality, I proved to myself that I was capable of delivering under pressure, and I gained the confidence that I needed to succeed in my career. So next time you're faced with a situation that evokes fear and uncertainty, remember to ask yourself, what's the worst that can happen? And then take action towards your goal, whatever it may be. Worst case scenario, you might fail, but in that failure, you'll gain valuable lessons that will help you succeed in the future. Point number 3. What is the cost of not doing this? 2. Have you ever experienced a situation where you knew you needed to take action, but just couldn't bring yourself to do it? Maybe you had to ask for a raise at work, but you were afraid of rejection. Or maybe you wanted to start a business, but were scared of taking the risk. Whatever the case may be, the fear of taking action can often cause us to miss out on incredible opportunities. But here's where the third question comes in handy. What is the cost of not doing this? B. By reframing the question from "what if I fail" to "what if I don't try," we shift our perspective and consider the potential downsides of inaction. Instead of focusing on the risks of taking a new job, we can ask ourselves, what will happen if I stay in my current job that I'm unhappy with? Or, instead of worrying about the failure of our business idea, we can ask ourselves, what will happen if we don't try to pursue this opportunity? When we approach things this way, we're able to visualize the negative consequences of inaction and realize that the cost might be even greater than the risk of taking action. For example, if you're unhappy in your current job but are afraid to quit, the cost of not taking action could mean spending years in a job that doesn't fulfill you, which can lead to burnout, resentment, and regret. On the other hand, if you take the leap of faith and quit your job, the worst that can happen is that you have to find another job. But in doing so, you open yourself up to new possibilities and opportunities that you may have never considered before. So the next time you're faced with a decision that scares you, take a moment to consider the cost of not taking action. Visualize the negative consequences of staying where you are, and ask yourself if it's worth sacrificing your happiness and potential for the sake of comfort and familiarity. And that's a wrap. These 3 questions are the key to breaking free from the fear trap and taking control of your own life. Remember to always ask yourself, what would X say? 2. Get an outside perspective on your decisions. Ask yourself, what is the worst that can happen? To put your fears into perspective. And finally, ask yourself, what is the cost of not doing this? To consider the consequences of inaction. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these points resonated with you the most and why? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. It really means a lot to me and helps my channel grow. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.